It was a crisp October morning in 2024 when the police cars screeched into our quiet cul-de-sac in Willow Creek, Virginia. Sirens blared, and before I could process what was happening, I saw our HOA president, Margaret Hensley, being hauled away in handcuffs. Her crime? Calling 911 with a wild story about my wife, Laura, waving a gun in our backyard. Except Laura wasn't holding a gun, she was calmly trimming our azaleas with pruning shears, a serene smile on her face that sent chills down my spine. As Margaret disappeared into the patrol car, Laura whispered, "She just handed me everything I need to bury her." That was the moment I realized the woman I'd married wasn't the person I thought she was. What Laura did next turned Margaret's life into a nightmare, and it unraveled a web of deceit that left our neighborhood reeling. Where are you reading this from? Buckle up, this story is a wild ride. I'm Tom, a high school chemistry teacher, and I thought moving to Willow Creek would be the most uneventful decision Laura and I ever made. We just bought a charming brick house in this postcard-perfect suburb, neat lawns, friendly waves, the whole deal. Laura had recently stepped back from what she called a grueling career as a legal consultant, and I was thrilled she'd finally slowed down. She'd spent years buried in case files, taking calls at odd hours, always on edge. Now, she was freelancing and working on a thriller novel, which I figured would be the perfect low-key retirement gig. We'd barely unpacked when Margaret, our next-door neighbor, showed up with a tray of oatmeal raisin cookies and a smile that could light up a room. "Welcome to Willow Creek," she beamed, looking like she'd walked out of a lifestyle blog. Margaret, in her mid-50s with impeccable auburn hair, had this knack for making you feel like you were her new best friend. "I'm the HOA president," she said, handing Laura the cookies. "I love helping folks settle, and there's so much to know about our little community." Those cookies were divine, and Margaret seemed like a godsend. She rattled off tips about recycling schedules, the best local diner, and which plumber to call for emergencies. I thought we'd hit the neighbor jackpot. But then she started asking questions, lots of them. Where were we from? Why Willow Creek? What did we do for a living? Laura mentioned her freelance legal work and novel writing, and I said I taught chemistry. Margaret's eyes gleamed. Legal consulting? That must be thrilling. What kind of cases? Any specialties? Her questions felt more like a deposition than a chat. Laura explained she researched criminal cases for her book, but Margaret kept probing, circling back to verify details. It was intense, like she was building a dossier. Then Margaret dropped some unsettling gossip about our neighbors. She knew the Thompsons down the street were behind on their mortgage. She mentioned the young couple across the way had taken out a risky home improvement loan. She even knew who had what health insurance and whose kid was eyeing an Ivy League school. When I asked how she knew all this, she laughed it off. "I like to stay informed. It helps me support the community." Laura went quiet, her eyes narrowing as she watched Margaret leave. Later, in our kitchen, she said, "She's not just curious, Tom. That's surveillance." I thought she was overreacting. Her legal background probably made her paranoid, but looking back, I should have trusted her gut. Over the next week, Margaret became a fixture. She'd pop by with muffins, offer to show us the best jogging trails, or suggest contractors. But every conversation looped back to our finances, schedules, and plans. Laura started giving vague answers, but Margaret was relentless. "I just want to ensure you know all the resources available," she'd say, her smile never faltering. She even hinted at protecting us from troublesome neighbors, whispering about folks who might take advantage of professionals like us. It felt off, like she was trying to control the neighborhood's social hierarchy. Then I caught her snapping photos of our house from her driveway, pretending to check her mailbox. "Just updating HOA files," she called out when she saw me. "Your place is gorgeous." That night, Laura sat me down. "Tom, Margaret's not just nosy. She's building leverage. This is how people manipulate and control." The next day, Margaret invited us to a mandatory HOA meeting for new residents. "Just to go over community standards," she said, her tone sharper than before. Laura accepted with a smile, but as soon as Margaret left, she turned to me, her eyes cold and calculating. "Whatever happens at that meeting, trust me, Tom. I'm protecting us." Her words made my stomach twist. And why did I feel like we were walking into a trap? The meeting was held in Margaret's pristine living room, packed with 20 neighbors on folding chairs like we were at a corporate briefing. Margaret stood at the front, clipboard in hand, introducing us like we were exhibits. Meet Tom and Laura Bennett, our newest residents. Tom teaches chemistry, and Laura's a freelance legal consultant who writes thrillers. The way she said thrillers dripped with suspicion, like Laura was plotting crimes instead of writing them. Then she launched into a bizarre presentation, spouting nonsense about HOA powers claiming they could enter homes without notice or impose random fines. Laura corrected her calmly, but firmly. Actually, property owners have Fourth Amendment rights requiring notice and cause for inspections. Margaret's smile tightened, but her eyes lit up like she'd caught Laura in a trap. Margaret kept baiting her, tossing out fake legal scenarios about property disputes and noise ordinances. Laura couldn't help herself to correct Margaret's errors with pinpoint accuracy before catching herself and saying, "Just something I learned from my novel." The neighbors nodded along, oblivious, but I saw Margaret cataloging every word. It was like watching a predator stalk its prey. Afterward, I confronted Laura. "That wasn't just research. You sounded like you've argued cases in court." She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Tom, how much do you trust me?" "Because I need you to trust me completely, even if things don't add up right now." For the first time in our marriage, I felt like I was staring at a stranger. Margaret's next move was a full-on harassment campaign disguised as HOA enforcement. She'd show up with fake citations. Our grass was too long by an inch. Our mailbox was non-compliant. Laura countered each one with surgical precision, citing bylaws and drafting responses that shredded Margaret's claims. She seemed to anticipate every move, keeping files of evidence, photos, timelines, even legal precedents. "Where did you learn this?" I asked, floored by her investigation skills. Laura's answer changed everything. "I haven't been fully honest, Tom. My legal work wasn't just consulting. I was a federal prosecutor for 12 years, specializing in organized crime and fraud." My jaw dropped. Federal prosecutor? The woman I'd married had put criminals behind bars, and I'd had no clue. Laura showed me her findings. Margaret was targeting high-value homeowners, harassing them until they sold below market value, boosting her own property's worth. She'd caught Margaret lifting heavy planters while claiming disability benefits for a back injury. "This isn't just HOA nonsense," Laura said. "It's a calculated fraud scheme." She'd even uncovered Margaret's ties to a broader insurance fraud network, using her old prosecutor contacts to dig into federal databases. But the scariest part? Laura had trusted our neighbor, Dr. Ellen Harper, a family doctor who seemed to support her investigation. Ellen had been documenting Margaret's behavior, but Laura didn't know Ellen was feeding intel back to Margaret, playing both sides. Margaret's desperation grew as Laura's investigation tightened. She'd bang on our door at dawn, claiming our sprinklers were flooding her yard, or show up at midnight whining about our too bright porch light. Laura was ready every time, recording interactions and citing laws that left Margaret fuming. At a community safety meeting, Margaret painted Laura as a threat, twisting her legal expertise into something sinister. Laura stood up and dismantled Margaret's lies with case law, leaving the room stunned. Neighbors started questioning Margaret's authority, and her mask began to crack. The breaking point came on a sunny Tuesday in October 2024. Laura was in our backyard, pruning azaleas, when I overheard Margaret on the phone, frantic. "She's investigating me, building a case. I can't let her ruin everything." Peering out, I saw Laura, calm and focused, clipping branches with her shears. Margaret, pacing her yard, suddenly shouted into her phone. "She's out there now, waving what looks like a gun. She's threatening people." My heart sank. She was calling 911, lying through her teeth. I ran to warn Laura, but she just smiled. "I know, Tom. I've been expecting this. Let me handle it." Police arrived in minutes, expecting a violent scene. Instead, they found Laura gardening, shears on the ground. She explained everything with chilling calm, showing them recordings of Margaret's harassment and evidence of her fraud. The officers confronted Margaret, who stammered that the shears looked like a weapon. They weren't buying it. Filing a false report was a felony, and Margaret was cuffed on the spot. As she was led away, Laura made a call. "It's time," she said. Within an hour, FBI agents swarmed our street, followed by insurance fraud investigators. Laura's old colleague, Agent Carter, explained, Laura's been consulting on suburban fraud rings. Margaret's part of a multi-state network stealing millions through fake disability claims and harassment. The raid uncovered everything. Margaret's house was searched, her records seized. Dr. Ellen was arrested, Tush'd been forging medical documents for the network. Laura had been betrayed by someone she trusted, but her evidence was airtight. The media descended, turning our street into a spectacle. Neighbors came forward, sharing stories of Margaret's intimidation. Her scheme had netted $500,000 in fraudulent benefits and manipulated property sales for years. At her sentencing, the prosecutor Laura's former colleague laid out charges: wire fraud, conspiracy, racketeering. Margaret got 18 years, Ellen, 10, plus a revoked medical license. Their assets were liquidated, families shattered, lives ruined. Our neighborhood transformed. Property values soared 30% as buyers flocked to a safe community with a resident ex-prosecutor. Laura became a consultant for the FBI, exposing similar schemes nationwide. Our marriage grew stronger, though I had to adjust to knowing I'd married a woman who'd spent years battling criminals. At a backyard barbecue, as kids played in what was once Margaret's yard, now owned by a kind immigrant family, I realized justice hadn't just been served. It had reshaped our community. Laura's roses bloomed brighter than ever, a symbol of what grows when deceit is uprooted. So what do you think? Was Laura a hero or too ruthless in destroying Margaret? Should she have exposed Ellen sooner, or was her trust justified? How far would you go to protect your home from someone like Margaret? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this story gripped you, and subscribe for more tales of justice served cold. Stay safe out there.